Hey team, welcome back to another incredible episode of the Intentional Agribusiness. Gosh, as soon as I started talking, like right, that whatever that cold is, like just went to the back of my throat.
I hear
Excuse
you.
me. Let
Never
me
fails.
mark that, and then we'll start over. Hold on. Hey team, welcome back to another incredible episode of the Intentional Agribusiness Leader podcast. This is your host, Mark Jewell, and I am joined today by my longtime friend and industry ally, Corey Rosenbusch. He's the CEO of the Fertilizer Institute. You see him a lot on the social medias. You see him a lot in the ag media because he's kind of at the center of a lot of the conversations of some of the stuff that makes this industry tick. Corey, welcome to the show.
Mark, it's a pleasure. Can you believe we've known each other for what, 30 years?
I was just thinking about this. I just got invited back to my 25-year state officer reunion, and you would have been a national officer probably 3 or 4 years before that.
Yeah,
So
we're
it's
going
been
on
a
30.
minute. Yeah, that's wild. 3 decades. 3 decades. It's crazy.
Makes us old.
Corey, yeah, it does. We're pushing up on that definition in life. Corey, you get the same opening question, regardless of how long we've known each other, that everybody gets. What does it mean for you to be intentional?
Oh man, the first thing that comes to mind, or where I use the word intentional most, is around culture. Our culture. We talk about intentionality here at the Fertilizer Institute a lot in the context of how we build an organizational culture. So, I just celebrated 6 years at TFI. It's been a wild ride. I remember walking in the door, and that was one of the questions I did in my one-on-ones with everyone, was asked, what's TFI's culture? Describe for me TFI's culture. And of the 30 staff we have, I probably got 25 different answers. So every organization has a culture. Culture does drive the day, but are you intentional about what it is, or does it just get created organically? And so we as a team, the entire team, develop our culture. We define the behaviors for each of the core values we want to represent in that culture. We do, much like companies will do a weekly safety briefing or a daily safety briefing, we do a weekly culture moment that we share a cultural moment from the prior week. And even our performance management system includes cultural alignment as part of that performance management process.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. I love the intentionality. I mean, actually, if you want to have culture or some definition of it, you actually have to sit down, make time, schedule it in, do things that support it. So otherwise, I guess it doesn't become accidental or unintentional. So
Yeah, or just the personality of the leader.
yeah, nice work, man. Nice work. Well, for those who are listening that maybe don't know a ton about the Fertilizer Institute, give us a rundown.
Yeah, we're the trade association based in Washington, D.C. that represents the fertilizer industry. So our members are manufacturers, wholesalers, distributors, importers, and retailers of fertilizer. And we do all of the typical trade association things. We obviously advocate for issues impacting the industry on Capitol Hill, within the federal government, and provide networking events. Just came from our annual meeting, conferences, communication vehicles, and those things that offer value to those members' businesses.
Very good, man. Well, it's been obviously an interesting year and a half or so that I'm sure it's always interesting. You've been there for 6 years, but I'm sure it's been even more interesting under the new administration. Did your time bleed into the first Trump administration and then the whole Biden and then now the Trump?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, I started in 2020. So I was
Okay.
2 weeks before COVID. It was a horrible time to start a new job, especially a job that depends so much on relationships. Like how do you build relationships in a virtual environment? That's a whole nother podcast for a different day.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then it has been the wildest year of my life. I mean, you wake up every morning with absolute no clue about what the day is going to hold. You wake up on a Saturday and don't know what's going to get announced. And I've been doing this presentation. I did it a couple months ago called 10 Months in 10 Minutes, and just kind of walk through all of the crazy things that have transpired in the last 10 months. And so I like Bryson DeChambeau and his golfing videos. Each month I get to add a minute. So
Yeah.
I just did it. I just did it yesterday. 12 months and 12 minutes. And it's been 12 years worth of activity.
I'm sure. I'm sure. Give us some highlights. Corey, I mean, the folks listening to this show are the guys and gals driving up and down the road in trucks in rural America, getting products into the hands of farmers. And so you got a little bit of a stage to share with them today what you'd like them to know about the fertilizer industry, where you guys are at, what the global stage looks like a little bit. What would you like them to be able to communicate to the farmers? Because imagine a lot of the folks listening probably will have a conversation with a grower sometime this week.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just give you a couple of examples from the 12 months. And I think the first one is that I don't know that fertilizer has been elevated on a global stage in the way that it has been in the last 12 months. And it's important for food security and national security. We were at the inaugural ball, the Ag Ball, they call it, on inauguration night, and the president was already in the Oval signing 50 executive orders. And I remember getting a text message in the middle of what was supposed to just be a fun evening going, he just put tariffs on Canada. And that is significant, of course, to us because we have to import about 87% of our potash from Canada. God did not put potash in the United States, or put limited potash in the United States of America.
Right. Yeah.
It's a mineral that matters where it is. And so we immediately had to go into action. I remember sitting in the White House in the first 2 weeks. They didn't even have furniture. We're standing in the hallways and, they're going, well, why is this relevant? And, can't we just settle all of this and in July put the potash on the crops? I mean, just the basics of, well, it's kind of not how plants and growing works. And it was coming right up on growing season. And then, of course, you fast forward, and we had the Belarusian negotiation that happened. I don't know, December maybe, I think it was, where that Ryanair aircraft got hijacked years ago. Mm-hmm. We put sanctions on the Belarusian government because their number one source of revenue is their potash. And in exchange for all those prisoners getting released, we agreed to lift the sanction on Belarusian potash. So fertilizer is like central to key peace negotiations. It's absolutely unbelievable how all this plays out. I mean, even if you look at something like Iran, and when we attacked those nuclear sites, we also took out some of their fertilizer production. Okay. You go, well, that doesn't matter. Well, Iran's the second largest exporter of urea in the world. They have about 12% of global market. So that's 12% less tons available to growers somewhere. And what do we know about basic global supply and demand? When supply is limited, demand's high, it's going to drive up prices. So anyways, all of that, of course, accumulated to a really difficult time for the grower. Farm economics are not great. And supply and demand is out of balance from a fertilizer standpoint. And I don't know if it was a career low light at first, but it's actually had some dividends. Was Senator Grassley had a hearing on fertilizer prices and concentration in the Senate Judiciary Committee, and we've kind of been under the microscope related to those issues the last few months. So just explaining all of that has been it's been a real challenge, and I get it. Growers are not happy about it, and they're being very vocal. So.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. If I'm leading a team of salespeople, in the industry, can you? I mean, you said a lot there, and I think I could go back and listen to that and pull out some good talking points for my team. But let's give them one or two key talking points. I had a guy on the show a few weeks ago where we talked about here's what I want my people to say, and here's what I don't want them to say.
Yeah.
What should we be communicating?
I mean, the overall message is that it's a commodity, much like the crops that farmers are growing, and prices are not established here in the United States. It's established on a global market that's really dictated by global supply and demand. We're a net importer of fertilizer. The largest producer in the world is China. They produce close to 50% of all phosphates in the world, and they have made a strategic policy decision not to export any of that. And so that impacts what we pay for phosphates here in the United States, probably more than anything right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think just explaining the nature that it's a commodity, it's subject to global supply and demand is really the key thing to understand. We have to import product to supplement our domestic production.
Perfect. Love it, man. Well, let's get to know Corey a little bit, because there's more to the story than representing fertilizer companies and the industry. You've been a longtime industry advocate. You're a Texas guy, born and raised, if I remember right. Came up, at least in my purview, from as I've been watching, through the FFA and ag ed world, and have had a storied history in that. But you'll do a better job talking about you than I will. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's great to be. I took a little bit of a break from ag, and the thing I love about it is that it is a community, and I missed it for a little while. It's great to be back, seeing people like you that I grew up with. I mean, my dad was the ag teacher in a small Texas town called Glenrose, about 2,000 people, and I was not even his first national FFA president. He had one before me. So
Wow.
for a while, we were the only chapter in the country to have two national FFA presidents.
Interesting. Wow.
That has since changed. But yeah, and we joke, he says that I'm like his third most successful student, because Secretary Brooke Rollins was one of my classmates and one of his students, Secretary of Agriculture. But when Brooke and I are talking, we love to joke that neither of us are the most famous, because probably the most famous FFA member that my dad had was Dan Campbell, who is the head coach of the NFL Detroit Lions. So
there you go. Wow. Yeah, fascinating. I did not know that. That's cool.
Yeah, it's small town Texas. You never know what's going to come out of some of these places. I do think there's an interesting story there that I'd love to have some research done on, and that is just success breeds success. You surround yourself by really driven, motivated, successful people. It does rub off, and I think that's why we had a string of some really amazing people come through that I got to benefit from as the youngest.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so went to A&M, did a degree there. My first career was actually in international development. I lived in Indonesia, working with farmers in ag business there. My wife had enough. She wanted to come back home after 3 years. At that point, home is relative, and we've been in DC for 25 years now. Most of my career here in DC was at a different association that represented the cold storage industry. And 6 years ago, made the leap over back into ag with the Fertilizer Institute.
Yeah. Well, I remember following your journey through the cold storage industry, which was also incredibly interesting, just to understand the vastness, I guess, of what it takes to actually make food happen safely.
It's an invisible industry. We joke that kids don't know where that milk comes from a cow, from a farm. But I bet most people having lunch today or dinner tonight don't realize all the steps that their food goes through to get on their plate. These are big, massive, invisible buildings that everything gets stored and distributed through, and part of the food chain.
Yeah, there's so much intention, quite frankly, that goes into every aspect, from seed selection to fertilizer to, everything that gets that stuff put on our plates. And we need to be more grateful than we are, quite frankly.
Mark, you need to do a Netflix series and pick like 5 most common foods and just trace it from seed all the way. Right. I think that would really shed some light on how much it takes to get it on our plate.
Yeah, I agree. I think we probably could come up with some sponsors for that. That's a good idea.
Probably.
We should look into it. So, just talk to us a little bit about the Fertilizer Institute. I think we understand the broad view of what it is, who it represents, what your role is there in DC. We've had several other. We had the Meat Institute, and we've had other special interest groups on the show. It's kind of been a theme here for 2026, but how does it work, man? Like, how big is it? How many people work there? Like, how do you build culture? I mean, we talked about building culture in that context right at the top of the show, but how does it run?
Yeah, We're a dues-based organization, so probably 70-80% of our revenue comes from dues. The rest would come from conferences and event revenue. I'll get in trouble for leaving someone out, but our largest members would be companies that many of your listeners would know, from a Nutrien, Mosaic, CHS. My chair was from Growmark. So that entire supply chain is represented. We have about 30 staff here. You mentioned the Meat Institute. This building is kind of being built out as Ag Central Station. They're a floor below me. But we've moved in together, and we actually share an office suite with CropLife America, that represents the crop protection industry, and ARA, the Ag Retailers Association. So we're all together right here in one office space, share information and collaborate on key issues. So I think,
Very cool.
total, we probably have 60 people here in this office.
Yeah. Maybe give us some idea. What is the importance of what you guys do? I mean, we inherently know it's important. Can you put it in layman's terms to help us understand? Like, when we see TFI or Meat Institute or ARA, or a lot of these organizations that represent us in Washington D.C., like, I think those of us that are out here just doing work every day, we grow disenfranchised between that. It's sort of like this curtain, like this Oz kind of situation that evolves, because we're not informed and we don't know, and we don't have those relationships, and all we hear is the headlines, right? So why is it so important? What do you guys,
Yeah,
when it really matters to me?
I'll go back to the example I gave about the beginning of the administration and those tariffs on Trump.
Yeah.
I mean, we had to go into full mode, warp speed, educate everyone we can, because that was a bit of a policy crisis.
Yeah.
I mean, had we not been here and not been able to explain, the three questions I got that day were, well, don't we have strategic reserves of potash? And the answer is no. We're not the oil and gas industry. We don't just have it
Right.
stockpiled somewhere. Where are our manufacturing plants? So they had an automobile lens that we were somehow bringing material across and then manufacturing it here. And that's, of course, not the case. The potash is the potash that comes out of the ground.
Right.
I mean, there is some manufacturing that goes into it, of course, to
Of
make it
course.
granular, but it's still generally the raw product. And then, of course, I talked a little bit about the timing of application. So had we not been in their ear every day for 2 to 3 weeks, we would not have gotten that exemption that we got. And it is still a bit surreal to know that the president signed an executive order about potash. They still can't say it right. They call it potash, but that's okay. We'll forgive them. In the Oval Office to exempt that product at that really critical time. And there were hundreds of phone calls and meetings from, the White House to USDA to Capitol Hill. And, if we don't exist as an association, we may not have gotten that exemption, and we may not have seen that product flowing across the border for growers going into spring planting. That's just one example.
Yeah.
Frankly speaking, Mark, those crises kind of happen every week right now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's pretty wild. So I appreciate you breaking it down that way, because and we all lived through that. And I think if you were paying attention and at least watching a headline or two here or there, like, that happened. I remember seeing the exemption come through, and so it's cool to know I can put a face in the name, or a face and a name behind the conversations that are actually making that happen. Because otherwise, it just seems like Trump did it. Right? Oh, Trump,
yeah,
he had mercy, and I guess ultimately he did. We'll get. I don't want to not give him credit if he made an exemption, or somebody got into his ear to help him make an exemption. But yeah, it's like it's kind of like some of this seems like common sense for those of us out here doing this stuff every day.
yep.
But there's so much noise, right? And I think those that are in leadership have a hard time discerning signal, right? Being tuned into the right frequency, right, from the noise, and that's one of the toughest things. So you guys
Yeah.
are there helping to tune the signal.
Another great example, if I use a little bit of a different product, biostimulants. Those
Okay.
are a hot topic right now in agriculture. There has been a push, or there was potential. Sometimes it's stopping things happening
Yeah.
rather than getting things happening. And there was a push to get those regulated like a pesticide at EPA.
Interesting. Yeah.
That would have been horrific. I mean, we know the delays that it takes to get a crop protection product through EPA approval. If we had to do that for all of the biostimulants, biological products, it would have been disastrous. So we have
Mm,
been managing to defend that they are not to be treated like a crop protection product, which means they essentially get regulated more like a fertilizer.
right.
And so we're working now to get that, kind of in stone via congressional action.
Okay.
But
Wow.
you know, we just keep plowing away to make sure it doesn't happen on a daily basis right now.
That's really good because here's something that affected me. It has nothing to do with biostimulants or fertilizer, but the EPA regulated Berkey water filters.
Okay.
Okay, I don't know if you know what a Berkey is, but a Berkey is just it's a tin can, a stainless steel can. It's 4 gallons, and you put the Berkey company made these special water filters, and it filters out like 99.9% of the bad stuff that's in our water. Okay, well, I don't care if you're pulling it from city water or you're pulling it out of your pond. You can take pond water, right, and have it drinkable within 5 minutes just by running it through this thing. And it's gravity fed. Put it in the top, the water comes out the bottom. But the claim of the Berkey company is that it kills
Oh, don't use that
any.
word.
That was the I don't know. Maybe, I don't. I assume that that's the word, but it
Yeah.
removes any bugs or any stuff that's in the any microorganisms that are in there. And so they so I can't get a Berkey water filter. They're good for about 6,000 gallons. They work for a long time, but no, I can't get a new one. There are other companies that make similar products. I can get a replacement. It's not that this is not like we're not going thirsty over here.
The
But I
minute you
saw that, I
use
was
the
like,
word,
how ridiculous, right?
yeah.
We're just a family that cares about the water that we drink, you
Yep.
know, and we want to have good, healthy water for us and our kids. So,
And it comes down to one word. They use the word kill
yeah, if that's it, right?
in their claims. If they say it kills something, boom, it triggers a whole regulatory process.
It's
Which is
so
why we
cool.
say, look, biostimulants don't kill anything. It
Right.
promotes
Yep.
bacterial or whatever uptake of the nutrients.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the argument. Well, it's which is good, and I think I mean we need some of these things if we're gonna have potential fertilizer issues. Then there are some products out there that help make fertilizer more effective, more efficient. How big of a deal is nutrient use in the conversations that you guys are having?
Yeah, I mean, very significant. It even gets more significant when we get in a market situation like this. I'm even wearing my 4R nutrient stewardship logo today. The 4Rs have been something we developed and branded decades ago. Applying fertilizer at the right source, rate, time, and place. When you're looking at budget limitations,
Yep.
being efficient and good stewards with your fertilizer application. We say growers always do, but they even get more efficient when it becomes challenging times. So that's something that we promote quite heavily. I was in Des Moines last week, and it's unfortunate, but the local late night news had a little story hit piece on cancer in Iowa, and they were basically saying that nutrients in the water was causing it.
Yeah.
So we spend a lot of time working with science, working with agronomists, working with our university systems to not only research the impact,
Yeah.
but to also deliver best practices to growers.
Good. Good. Yeah. That makes good sense. I is It seems like such an interesting melting pot of ideas in DC with this administration because you have I mean, there's a lot of the traditional, like if we have a conservative, then things are pretty pro ag and we conventional ag can kind of go do what it wants to do. Right. And then if you have the other administration, the other side of the aisle is in charge, then there's more, I don't know, grief, that gets dealt to the farmers. But now you have this, I mean, you got RFK, You got Trump, you got Brooke, you got you guys, and so it's like, what is that like?
Oh, it'll make your head explode.
Because
But
you're all on the same team, sort of,
the
but maybe
rules,
we don't believe the same thing. So like, what?
yeah, we talk a lot about this from a political standpoint, in that we have entered an era of populism. And
Yeah.
so parties are secondary to populism right now.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating about populism and having a populist president is that when we joke that it's a horseshoe, and when you get so far on the extremes to the left and the right, they eventually meet.
Yeah.
And so it's the extreme on the right and the extreme on the left that are actually now all aligned,
Yeah.
and it makes it really difficult to have conversations. I mentioned the Senate Judiciary Committee hearing that we did, and it was just a little surreal to walk into a Senate hearing where you had Democrats trying to align themselves with the farmers and being pro-farm, and attacking a president and a party, a Republican Party, that was hurting the farmer.
Right.
And so that was how all of that was. I'm not saying that's what's happening. I'm just saying that's how that's being positioned in that hearing. And then you had a conservative Republican senator who identified a witness for his committee, who is a far left, progressive, anti-business, antitrust witness. And you're just going, what in the heck is going on here? I mean, it's all of those rules have just flown out the window, and you know, you whatever you think, it's just, it doesn't work that way anymore.
Here's how weird it's gotten. I think it was just yesterday. Excuse me. Just yesterday, I saw a video, and it was like, I mean, prior to all this, like, milk was kind of getting a bad rap, like a lot of, like, in terms of like, hey, maybe it's not that healthy for you, maybe it's not the greatest source of protein, right? So in cheeses and stuff, I've had Corey from Midwest Dairy on here too, and so we've talked about how they pivoted and positioned dairy in other ways as well. But now all of a sudden, RFK is on a dairy farm, right, in Pennsylvania, talking about the value of it. And prior to a lot of this, he was kind of like anti-milk, right, a little bit. And so, but now, like, just yesterday, the video I saw was a really poorly edited video, actually, of RFK and Kid Rock shirtless working out. Okay, RFK and Kid Rock working out at what looks to be his ranch in Nashville, our Kid Rock's ranch in Nashville, and having just this, like, really, like, he's being the trainer working out Kid Rock, right? And in the end, they're cheersing with two
Whole, whole,
glasses of milk in a hot tub.
whole milk,
Whole
right?
milk, whole
Yeah,
milk. Gotcha. So,
yeah.
so can we get raw milk back on the table? Is that a
Uh,
possibility?
that was a push. That was definitely a push. I mean, I'll even use that Maha movement as an example, right? Make America Healthy Again, that
Yeah.
RFK's leading. Um, Even within that, you get some really interesting dynamics where you have
Yeah.
some of the most conservative, labeled groups in America who are leading some of that effort.
Right.
And it in some ways feels anti-agriculture,
Right.
right? So it's
Yeah.
just like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Now, they will tell you that a lot of that has been hijacked, right? That the Maha movement has been hijacked, and are using the name and the brand
Mhm.
outside what they really want to achieve and
Sure.
represent. So
Yeah. Well, that's the messages tend to get a little bit diluted,
they do.
the longer we go
They
with
do.
some of these things. But it's an interesting public perception. As you were saying that, I was thinking about I was talking to my neighbor about supplementation, and when we do a fair amount of it, like, we're fairly choosy around what we put on our bodies. We're into biohacking a little bit, and so he made the assumption that we must be liberal.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh,
And so this was leading up to the last election. He's like, "So you're supporting Trump?" He's like, "But you take supplements." And I said, "What do you mean? Like, what what does that have to do with anything? Like, I just take care of my body." And That was one of those things like, wow, like we just like, I mean, just the perceptions of people are pretty wild.
Yep, absolutely. Everything's
So
reversed.
good. All right, Corey, what, one of the common questions I like to ask of people is what's been one of your favorite go-to or most influential books or podcasts or resources that has impacted your leadership? We get the full gamut. We get everything from Jocko to the Book of Matthew. But what's what's it been for you over the years?
Oh man, that is a great question. Um, yeah, that's a really hard question. I'm a big Lencioni fan. I use him a lot in
Yep.
a lot of our management and leadership framework.
Yep.
So, dysfunctions of a team is kind of our team model that we use, and we've recently kind of rolled out the whole working genius concepts
Cool.
that Lencioni, of course, has developed. Maybe it's my simple rural Texas mind that I just like the fable versions of how he tells his story. But
Right.
yeah, that's probably one of my favorite and one that we use a lot. If
Perfect.
you know the working genius piece, I'm a wanderer and
Hmm.
an ideator, and so I'm not great on the execution. And so, as we look at things around here, it's about finding a partner that has complementary geniuses, so that you have all of those six working geniuses represented. So, anyways, I'm a big Lencioni fan. I like him a lot.
Beautiful. We like him too. We've had a few different recommendations on Lencioni over the years, and we've got some of those in the library. So the product that we built out this last year is called Jericho, and one of the things that it does is it actually writes for every employee. It'll write an individual growth plan, a very like hyper personalized, and it does it
Mm,
very quickly. But we take all the books that people recommend on the podcast and the authors, and then we plug those into Jericho, and then we make those available. We link them up, and so we'll anything new that people give us, we put into the Jericho library. And so if there's a capability that
okay.
someone is working on, based on their job description, based on their goals, Jericho will make book and podcast recommendations automatically for them, and then email them out and puts them into their individual growth plans. So
Well,
we've got that in there, and we always
I,
appreciate the rec.
I feel bad then that I didn't give you anything new.
No, that's
So
good.
I'll tell you then the other one that you probably also use, but I'll throw it in there is traction. Are you familiar with
Oh
Wickman's
yeah, we
traction?
like traction. I don't think anybody's mentioned traction.
All right, so there's a
So
new one for you then. I went
yeah,
safe and common, but so traction is we use the entrepreneurial operating system, his
yep,
EOS model, and we live and breathe by it. It is our EOS that we
you
use to
bet.
run the organization here. And what I think is interesting about traction, I joke that it takes every single leadership management book ever written and combines it into one system. So,
It does. Yeah,
so,
it's good.
I mean,
It's
he's
really
got
good.
he's got the rocks and sharpening the saw and the flywheel, and I mean, it's like he
It's
went
got
and
a
took the best
little
of the
bit of
best and
everything.
had a best hits
Yeah.
book, but it's really good.
Well, that book for me, just I mean, I'm more visionary like you in nature, as is my wife, and we run this business together as co-founders. And so, we need that person or those people around us that are a bit stronger on the execution
Yeah,
side, right, of things.
absolutely.
And so, this podcast doesn't happen unless Ani is behind the scenes booking and doing all the reaching out. And then once I'm done recording, I don't touch it again until it hits the LinkedIn feed when the show comes out. So
Yeah,
we need those people around us to help get things done. So, man,
absolutely.
Corey, it's been super cool to reconnect. Thank you for making the time. I know you're busy. You got a lot going on there in DC. It's a wild world, but do keep us posted. And yeah, thanks for being on. We appreciate all the intel.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.